Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by Ray Ora.
Be back.
Jonathan Voico.
Hey, everybody.
And we're trying live streaming today. We are still a little bit of behind the curtain thing here. I'll make a post about this later. We are still suffering with some big internet problems due to our horrible internet provider, also known as Spectrum. And so, yes, I do apologize about that, but hopefully we'll be able to get through a live stream today. Fingers crossed. But hey, guys, listen, this is how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a bunch of predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you've got a comment or question for the show, go ahead and send it on into our tip link at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And as long as it's appropriate for us to address in the show, we'll address it a little bit later in the show. Also, here's the good news about the tip link. It's good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So even if you're watching the show later on in the evening when it's not live, you can also still send in a question and we'll just get around to addressing it on the next episode. All right, guys. Got a bunch of things to cover here, so let's get started with this. Star Wars TV shows aren't great.
What?
Now, there's the odd exception, right? Andor, best thing that Star Wars has done since the original trilogy. It's just simply the best thing Star Wars has done since the original trilogy. It's amazing. Mandalorian, at least season 1 and 2. Season 3, Private Eye, Mandalorian getting the club business card off the dead droid. Whatever they were doing with that. But, you know, they've also had a lot of crap. Inconsistency. I couldn't even get all the way through The Acolyte. And you guys know how excited I was for The Acolyte. Well, now there's a story coming out that is suggesting that Star Wars is looking at reducing back to just one show a year. You guys remember Bob Iger was talking about Marvel and said, listen, we've let quantity get ahead of quality. We need to rein it back a little bit. And maybe, just maybe, he might be applying that same logic to Star Wars. This comes to us from Screen Rant, who wrote the following. Disney may be reducing its Star Wars TV show output to just one new live action show a year. According to the Direct, I'm hearing that several series are in development, but it seems that they plan to release only one live action series per year starting in 2025. All right, now, a couple of things to note. Number one, notice that it said one live action series per year, right? They've got that Star Wars, what's it called? It's not Legends, Star Wars Visions. And a few other animated projects that they're toying around with. So there could still be other animated things coming out. But this could be good news for two different reasons. Well, you know what? Let me change that to 3. Good news, number 1, it could mean that they're going to refocus more of their energy and efforts on the damn theatrical stuff. We haven't had a Star Wars. I don't care what anybody else says. Star Wars is a movie franchise. It is meant to be a big screen experience. I love Andor. I love at least a couple of seasons of Mandalorian. But the primary thrust of Star Wars should be theatrical events. And maybe, just maybe, cutting back to like one live action thing a year could mean that they're going to reassess some of their energy, efforts, and resources to theatrical. Maybe. The second thing is that this would be good news because maybe like with Marvel, the point of this, from at least Bob Iger's point of view, is to focus more on quality. Let's, instead of working with 3 directors, let's pass this year on 3 different TV shows. Let's pick the one best director out of the bunch. Let's pick the one best writer's room out of the bunch and just do one show. The third reason that this could be quite good is it might mean we actually get a real TV series. None of this idiotic 6 episodes, 3 hours TV. It's not even real TV shows. So if this report holds up to be real, and we don't know, Disney certainly hasn't confirmed this. Got to take that with a giant grain of salt, right? But if this report ends up being real, it's, to me, nothing but good news. It means more energy and resources toward the movies. It means focusing more on the quality. You get to pick the best people you want to work with for just one show. And also maybe it means instead of these pathetic, joke, insulting 6-episode garbage they've been feeding to us, maybe we can get 10 episodes, 12 episodes, stuff like that. Don't know that we would for a fact, but I would certainly like it. And I certainly hope it's not another freaking wasted season of The Acolyte or Ahsoka. Say what you will about Ahsoka, I was at least able to finish it. I didn't initially.
There you go.
I had to come back to it. I went away from it, and I did have to come back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not like Ahsoka. Was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Other than who's our Punisher boy?
Yeah. You're talking about
Why am I freezing? He just passed away. Why am I freezing on his name?
Oh, Ray Stevenson.
Ray Stevenson. Other than Ray Stevenson, who was the shining gem, and it pains me to say that because I adore
Balin.
He played Balin. Yes, yeah. I absolutely adore Rosario Dawson. But I mean, that show was a waste. But at least it was a little bit better than The Acolyte.
It sounds to me like they're taking Marvel's lead, and
or they're getting the same mandate from Bob Iger.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I think it's coming from the top, and they're focused on quality over quantity, which is good. So
again, we don't know that this is true, but it would be good if it was.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find out for sure. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Reports out there saying that Star Wars may be reducing its live-action TV series to 1 per year. I've already expressed, I think there are 3 reasons why that could be really good. Maybe you can think of some downsides to that. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Matt Reeves, the director of Robert Pattinson's The Batman film, and quite frankly, highly anticipated The Batman 2, and is, of course, a producer on the Spinoff HBO Max series, Penguin, which I cannot wait to watch. That looks so good. Well, there are rumors going around that perhaps, you guys probably saw these rumors, that perhaps the Batman villain, Gentleman Ghost, could be the villain. Of course, the Gentleman Ghost is 2 things. A gentleman, but also a ghost, which strays a little bit outside of that very grounded, gritty Gotham that we had in the first The Batman movie with Robert Pattinson.
You don't believe in ghosts, John? Come on.
I think I do believe in ghosts.
Okay.
But not in Batman movies.
Right.
Yeah, Ray.
So Matt Reeves addressed this and kind of went a little bit further to kind of express something that we've all kind of suspected, that his Batman universe is not really going to use the villains that are like supernatural, too super powered. He wants more grounded villains. He said this. This came from an article in the Hollywood Reporter. Says, what was more important to me, says Reeves, was to find a way to take these pop icons, these mythical characters that everybody knows, and translate it so that Gotham feels like a place in our world, Reeves said. We might push to the edge of the fantastical, but we would never go into full fantastical. It's meant to feel quite grounded. Gentleman Ghost is probably pushed a little too far for us to be able to find a way to do it. But there is a way to think about how we would take characters that might push over into a bit of the fantastical and find a way to make sense of that. Now, this goes right along what he was just saying with things we've speculated about before, right? Like, you bring up a character like Mr. Freeze.
Uh-huh.
There's a way to do Mr. Freeze the way Matt Reeves just directed it, saying, maybe push it to the edge of where fantastical begins. There are science mumbo-jumbo ways you could try to ground Mr. Freeze in a quasi-viable explanation about who he is and what he is. But then there are just characters that you can't. Not in this Batman universe. Clayface. I mean, you can do a Clayface who was an actor turned rogue, and he just calls himself Clayface, but you can't do in this Gotham, Lady Gaga! You cannot do that Clayface. Only people who watch Harley Quinn will understand that reference. Like, you can't do that. But it does leave wide open the door for a lot of the big classic villains in his pantheon of villains, right? KG Beast is one I've always thought would fit in really well with this Batman universe. Obviously, Joker fits in with this description. Penguin, obviously, he's already there, fits in with that description. Catwoman, who's already there, fits in with that description. There's a lot of different characters that they have that would, even a Bane, toned down a bit, even a Bane, if you want to push just to that edge of fantastical, is a way to do it. But it would mean that some are probably out the door. What's the one? Is it Man-Bat? Yeah.
Man-Bat.
Man-Bat,
and I thought of like Solomon Grundy, who's literally just a zombie.
Yeah, Solomon Grundy would probably be off the table. Scarecrow is one that would work. Two-Face is one that still works.
Ventriloquist.
Calendar Man.
Yeah, I actually would like a Calendar Man because I like how they use Calendar Man in the Arkham games. I mean, this psychotic serial killer who kills on specific dates. I mean, that would be great to tie in, not as the main villain, but as just adding more tension to a situation. You could do Hush. You could do,
Professor Pig. You could do the Court of Owls.
Court of Owls. I'm thinking
fits.
of who's the one that shoots the Firefly? Or,
Firefly?
I think any...
That was going to be in the Batgirl
Make
movie.
him an arsonist. Like,
right. Any villain that keeps the detective work, interesting in the next film would be good for me. Because I love the way the Riddler, he was chasing the clues.
I think you're right. I hope they keep it.
Yeah,
they really focus in on the detective part.
Right. Because when you bring in a villain where it's just he's just there and there's no it cuts away those detective things. I think it takes away from this version of Batman, and I like the way they did that in the first one, where he was like just trying to figure things out.
You know what the door's still very much open for? Hell yeah,
Kite Man.
Kite Man.
He left.
Bring in Kite Man.
Batman sort of did a Kite Man in that one shot where he leaves the.
That's true. It only needs.
Kite Man was like, he needs help.
We need a Kite Man cut of the Batman.
Yeah.
And the only difference between the regular theatrical cut and this cut is as he's jumping off the police building and gliding down, he yells out, "Hell yeah!" If he does that, I'll buy a second DVD. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Now, there are going to be some people that are upset about that. A lot of people like the idea of Batman more like the animated Batman, like he can be in these things with giant aliens or supernatural beings, stuff like that. Matt Reeves tends to want to keep it feel a little bit more like it's in our world. What do you think about that? Whatever your guys' thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this. Reacher, first of all, I really like the Tom Cruise Reacher movie. I never read the novels. I loved the first Tom Cruise Reacher movie. As far as Reacher, Never Reach Again, or whatever the name of it, Never Go Back, Never Stop Stopping, Never Reach Again.
Never Stop Reaching.
What was the name of the second Reacher movie?
The Reach Around.
Of course, that's what it's called.
Reacher. Somebody look that up.
I'm looking at it.
Reacher, the Reach Around. I like that. But then came the TV series with Aquaman.
Never Go Back.
Never Go Back. Never Stop Stopping.
Yeah.
And of course, this series is great. I love the Reacher series. Yet another great thing because it's an Amazon show, right?
Yeah.
Yet another great thing that Amazon has done. They've been killing it a lot with a lot of their stuff. Like between that, The Boys, Gen V, Fallout. I mean, they're pretty much crushed. Hell, even their Lord of the Rings season 2 is better than season 1 was.
I'm like you. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next episode.
Yeah, again, I'm not ready to say that the second season of Rings of Power is great.
It's so much better. But it's
at least much better than season 1.
Season 1, I was like, I have to finish this. But
yeah, it was work to get through it. This one, I'm like, no, I'm looking forward to watching the next episode. Still not in love with it, but we'll see. But the show's great. Has huge ratings for Amazon. And now, apparently, they're going to do a spin-off series around Neagley, his main right-hand person. This comes to us from Variety, who writes this. A Reacher spin-off series is currently in the works at Amazon Prime Video, Variety has learned from sources. According to our sources, Nick Santora is writing the spin-off with Nicholas Wooten. Santora developed Reacher for television and serves as executive producer and showrunner on the series. Exact plot details for the spin-off are being kept under wraps, but it is believed to focus on Frances Neagley, who is played by Maria Sten in the main series. All right. If you're going to do a spin-off series of Reacher, this is the character you do it with. She is by far, I mean, listen, most, not all, but most of the supporting characters in Reacher are interesting and fun and all that kind of stuff. But by far, the best supporting character in both seasons is Neagley. She's got the best background. She is the most badass out of all of them, other than Reacher himself. She's got the most interesting story. And so and apparently all the stuff she does when she's not with Reacher is pretty deep, dark stuff. So if you are going to do a spinoff of Reacher, this is the character you do it with. But it does raise the question, should they be doing a spinoff at all? Do people want to see a Reacher series without Reacher? Now, this is a type of argument that goes all the way back to like say Cheers. Do people want to see Frasier without the Cheers crew? Turns out they did.
Uh-huh.
There have been a number of big spin-off series that have rivaled their originals.
And let's not deny that when Reacher was coming out, like the numbers were doing really well for them.
They're spectacular. The Reacher numbers are spectacular.
So why not try to expand that universe for the people who like watching the series, just to see if it can go anywhere? I mean, Amazon's got loads of money. I mean, it doesn't hurt trying to expand the universe, like I just said. Yeah. The only time and only way I'll have a problem with this. If doing a spin-off with this character means we don't get this character in Reacher season 3. Because while, I mean, obviously Reacher's main thing is Reacher, one of the best things about that series is the dynamic between that core group. And without Neagley there, it's just not the same. Again, she's clearly not as important as of a character as Reacher, but I mean, so if they're going to do this spinoff, I think you're right. Look, the numbers on Reacher are huge. You want to do more to try to expand that universe, to give the audience more content of stuff that takes place in that world, and she's absolutely the character you do it with. But if the price tag, and I don't know that it is, if the price tag of that means taking that key character away from the main series, then I might have a problem with it. The article, I think towards the end, does say that she's still going to be a part of season 3. Now, after that, if this series comes out and we find in season 3 they're writing her off so she could do this series, then that'll be a problem. But I believe that article said that she'll still be a part of season 3. She's
right,
still
but is she going to be in one episode?
Oh, right.
That's so that's what I'm worried about. Now, I would also probably bet we'll see. Oh, I just froze on the guy's name who plays Reacher.
Alan
Richmond. I would bet that you'd at least have him pop up in one episode.
Have to.
Right? Even though the audience knows this is a Reacher spinoff,
right,
just to really firmly plant that this is clear that same, right?
What they'll do is his death scene. They have him in the first episode. He dies because he can't fight off. And then, she takes the lead.
And then he hands off his only bus ticket to her and says, you are Reacher now.
Which is what I think we were talking about the John Wick spinoff, Ballerina. How we report, or we heard reports that John Wick is going to be, or we saw it in the trailer. We
saw it in the CinemaCon footage.
So
but apparently he's in a hell of a lot of it.
Yeah, but I think you have to do that just to remind fans.
Yeah,
like, at least
even if it's for one scene in a diner where she meets with him and the tables are reversed. Instead of him coming to her looking for information, she gets a hold of him and says, I need some help with this. Who do I go to for this? Even if it's just one scene to kind of establish that, that'll be important.
Just don't do it like Morbius post credit.
Yeah, we should team up.
We should
shoehorn. Why should we team up?
Because
anyway,
we're shoehorning this universe.
We're going to shoehorn this in. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I think this Reacher spinoff with Neagley, I think this could be very good, depending on how they go about it. Whatever your guys' thoughts on this are, jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right. with that down, guys, we still got to talk about a couple things, including Alison Brie from Community has just been cast as Evil-Lyn in the upcoming He-Man Masters of the Universe movie. And the first reviews for Joker 2 are out, and they're not great. And we're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second to thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Miracle Made and PrizePicks. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Miracle Made. Guys, it's hot outside and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. So if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. There are just so many things that make these sheets so fantastic. We already mentioned the self-cooling properties for better quality sleep, but they're also self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. So go to trymiracle.com/Campea. That's TRYMIRACLE.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You see, PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. And I was pleasantly surprised by just how quick and easy it was to get set up and registered and ready to go. Here's a couple of examples of picking your more or less. Tyreek Hill for more than 90 receiving yards, Dak Prescott for more than 263 passing yards, and CeeDee Lamb for more than 96 receiving yards. So guys, download the PrizePicks app today and use the code Campea and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Campea on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. And thank you to our friends at Miracle Made and PrizePicks for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Finally, so they say, a live-action He-Man Masters of the Universe movie is coming. A bunch of casting's already been done, but now, according to Report and Variety, the absolutely adorable Alison Brie, who is married to Dave Franco, by the way, for those of you who didn't know, has been cast to play a character I have a very hard time picturing her playing, but I'm super excited about it, Evil-Lyn. This is what Variety had to say. They wrote this. Alison Brie is the latest superstar to join the live-action Masters of the Universe movie from Amazon, MGM Studios, and Mattel Films. Brie has been cast as the supervillain Evil-Lyn, starring opposite, I always get his last name wrong, Nicholas Galitzine? Galexendo?
I think it's Zine.
Neagley?
Stick with the first one.
Okay, that one. That's
Galitzine.
good. Central Hero He-Man and Camilla Mendez, who was, of course, in Riverdale, as Tila, Captain of the Royal Guard, and at times love interest for He-Man. I love this casting.
Yep.
And they're shaping this up to possibly be one of the most attractive casts in the universe, because even Nicholas Galantino Ricky Tiki Tacky dude, it's a good-looking dude. He was in that... He was in that romantic comedy, that streaming romantic comedy with Catwoman.
Kravitz.
No,
Not a not
The
that
other
cat.
Catwoman.
The other, I don't know who that is.
Why am I freezing on her name?
Kravitz?
Oh,
No, she was in Les Mis. She won an Oscar.
Oh.
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway.
Why
I'm
did I
sorry.
freeze on Anne Hathaway
I'm
for a
so
minute there?
sorry, yeah.
So he was in that, which was actually kind of good, where he plays like the British rock star and he falls in love with this older woman who's
Right.
played by Anne Hathaway. It's actually really quite good. It's a really good little movie, and he was really great in it. I don't see him being nearly big enough to play He-Man, so how they're going to handle that, I'm not really sure. But he's a super good looking dude. Then you got Camila Mendes in there, who is smoking hot. I mean, so, and now you got Alison Brie, who I think is super attractive. So like you put those three together, you're getting some pretty good looking genetics there on the screen. It's definitely going to be He-Man.
He-Man.
Yeah. Hey man,
The
sort
college
of.
years.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Hey man. It's going to be a very good looking cast. Probably even have some kind of sexy Skeletor.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
We'll see how they go in that. But I just look, I love this. I really do. Now, that does, of course, leave the big question. Who's going to be Skeletor? Who's going to be Skeletor?
Well, but they could always start him out as Keldor, right? Because Keldor had,
As the good looking dude. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
and
going
then-
for a lot of good looking people in
Right.
this.
All right. You know what? Who's going to be Battle Cat? That's my favorite character.
It's going to Jack Black. Jack
Okay.
Black is
Oh,
Battle
boy.
Cat.
But he's not voicing it.
No.
He is Battle Cat.
I'm sure Alan Ritchson is going to be Battle
He's
Cat.
got to write him.
Oh my gosh, He-Man. Yeah. But who is going to play Skeletor?
That's
You got some classic names that come to mind.
that
like,
might be one of the most important castings of additions or.
I mean, like
whatever.
obviously He-Man is the most important one.
I mean, but come on.
but Skeletor,
yeah.
that's a huge one.
It
So-
was Longello before, right? In that 80s one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm coming back for you, He-Man. Like,
Hey man, you ruined my plans once again, Hey man.
that is the best Skeletor
I
impersonation
don't know.
I've ever heard.
Just gave it. I don't know.
So I'm seeing some good suggestions. I'm seeing
Yeah, let's hear some of
Kevin
those.
Hart as Skeletor.
Oh,
I like
good.
that one.
You said good, right? Did I mishear you?
Clint Eastwood as Skeletor.
You know what? That might work for the bone structure.
Do you feel lucky? You
know what?
He-Man?
I honestly am stumped. I usually at least have one, even if it's really bad. I'll have one in my head. I can't think of anybody.
Well, I mean, look, the reality is, you're not going to see their face, probably.
Nah.
Right. And do you make him the same age, around same age as the
You don't
the
have
kid?
to.
It's a skull. Who cares?
I know, but I'm just
What does it
saying.
mean?
I'm
That's-
just saying.
that's
if it's
one young
super
skull.
old- If it's just super old and a kid, it's called bullying or.
Oh, I like that. Someone in the live chat said John Mulaney.
There you go.
Hey.
Yeah, John Mulaney.
Okay, He-Man.
Oh, okay.
You know, you know some characters that are going to look great if they're a part of this movie. Beastman could be.
Yep, yep.
Because Skeletor is never going to fight He-Man in the first movie.
And then-
I'm considering this as a first. movie.
Oh. And I've got a perfect casting for another character.
Man at Arms.
Well, Man at Arms has got to be a character in the movie, right? I
Right.
don't know who you get to play maybe Josh Brolin as Man at Arms. Come on, Josh Brolin as Man at Arms would be a pretty good one, right?
'cause that's the.
You know what?
Dad.
Yeah, Tila's dad. But
I want David Tennant as Skeletor.
David Tennant wouldn't be bad.
Is that a real pick or is that? a
Yeah,
joke?
David
Okay.
Tennant. Yeah.
Okay.
But here's the one.
Who is it?
The character is Manny Faces,
Yeah.
the dude who's got the three
Yeah,
faces.
right.
And I'm not joking.
It's a
here.
great toy too.
Jim Carrey
Oh yeah.
as Manny Faces.
But he's retired after Sonic 3.
Well, no, he was retired before Sonic 3 and then came out of retirement.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, don't get me
that's
wrong.
a great pick. That's a great
It
pick.
probably would not happen. But yeah. Anyway,
I want to see some shots already of Grayskull and everything. I can't wait to see.
well, they haven't started making. This
I know.
movie
I
yet.
just can't wait to see
Yeah.
to see how what they're gonna do with it and what kind of is it gonna be really dark.
Oh, and then you get Sydney Sweeney as the sorceress.
Oh yeah.
The white
yeah, I can
bird.
see her.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah. You get
Sydney Sweeney as the sorceress.
right.
I mean,
And
there
so
you
it'll
go.
just be either a Masters of the Universe movie or next year's calendar. You're putting together something here.
Masters of the Fapiverse.
So-
Oh my god.
No, seriously.
Someone's
That's
gonna make
Ray
a
getting
t-shirt
excited
right
over
now.
there.
Am I the only one who gets excited every time?
Well, sounds like it.
No. they're adding to the cast. I mean, that's more than Blade is doing.
No,
Really?
it's true though.
We in this room right now are doing more than Blade is doing. So
It's
that's
just the
not
fact
a high
that
bar.
I cannot believe this has come together. For years, we've been reporting this. Ever since we were in
Oh,
Burbank,
yeah.
we had that picture of Battle Cat that we always use. It looked awesome. And now
Well,
they're
that
actually
was we were still at AMC when
now
that picture
yeah.
came out.
Now
yeah.
we got Travis Knight, and now we got we're getting
Yeah,
the cast
moving
together.
along.
It is going to happen. Anyone who's a big He-Man fan like I am, it's about to happen.
It's about to happen, and I think it's going to be good. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Alison Brie as Evil-Lyn. I personally love it. I think that's great. And I am actually legitimately starting to get excited about this Masters of the Universe film. What do you think about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, Joker 2 is coming out, getting closer. I loved the first Joker movie. Got nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, won Joaquin Phoenix. The Academy Award for Best Lead Actor, fully deserved it. But not everybody loved it, right? There were some people who had some problems with it. I get it. Joker is not a movie for everybody. Totally fair. I personally loved it. I get that not everybody else did. It also didn't have the best reviews. Like I believe the critic rating was like 69 or 70%.
Check that out for you.
For that, for the first Joker movie. Well, the first reviews for Joker 2, Folie Deux, have now come out, and they're not great. They're even less good than the reviews for the first Joker were.
Yeah, it was 69, John.
For the first one?
Yeah.
Last I checked, the critic rating for the second one is at 60%, which is even lower than the first, nearly 10% lower than the first one. And what's most concerning to me is that a number of the critics who are giving it negative reviews, not all of them, but a number of them are critics I know loved the first Joker. That's the part, you know, sometimes it makes me kind of excited when I see a sequel coming out and a review for a sequel come out, and there's a certain critic that I know didn't like the first one, but they really liked the second one. It's equally concerning to me when I read somebody who I personally know loved the first one and doesn't like this one. Again, it's not like they're all bad. 60%. I mean, that still means the majority of critics are liking it. But let's take a look at some of the reviews that have come in. The Chicago Reader liked it, saying Joaquin Phoenix in another outstanding performance. Well, I think we all expected that, right? Tablet wrote, also liked it. Not only an intelligent throwback to the feel-bad shock cinema of the 1970s, Joker is all but unique in its social realism. Mashable, however, Angie Hahn over there, I like her, did not like it. Said the result of these creative decisions, however, is that whatever power Joker as a pop culture icon might wield, Joker as a movie feels toothless. Film Comic Magazine also didn't like it. Joker doesn't understand its representation of violence because it doesn't know what to do with its politics, opting instead for a confused let me see if we can make sure I say this right. Anestheticization of anarchy, all incendiary chants and mass malcontents thronging in the streets. Come on. This is a person who clearly went to a thesaurus and tried to come out with words.
How do you read that?
The aesthetic of anarchy.
You know, you may not like the movie. I don't like your review.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
News.com wrote, Joker, they liked it, but they wrote, Joker is a jumble, sometimes brilliant, sometimes trite. Among its flashes of excellence is a self-serious movie that isn't nearly as deep as it thinks it is. Remember, this is a positive review, so it's not nearly as deep as it thinks it is. The National Catholic Register wrote, is it possible in the world of Joker to believe in real heroism? Do the filmmakers even care about the question? Film Spotting, who I know liked the first movie, wrote, never evolves beyond the scene after scene of painful slights, degradations, and worse, empty provocations.
Ooh.
The Verge liked it, saying, it's hypnotic just how horrifying Arthur's existence is, just as Phoenix's performance is hypnotic as he spirals from fragile hope into increasingly outsized and confident acts of destruction. Film Comment Magazine writes, in adapting the ambition and prestige of its motley influences, Joker winds up with a bungled understanding of its own relation to violence. The Observer liked it, saying, a movie that borders on genius repellent, dark, terrifying, disgusting, brilliant, and unforgettable. Robert Daniels wrote, Joker suggests that mental health issues require government funding, a narrative that would actually be progressive if the film stopped there. Anyway, and it goes on. There are positive, there are negative, or there's a bunch of negative, sitting around 60%. Now look, on yesterday's show, we just did a topic of my most anticipated R-rated films coming out for the rest of the year. And some great films, great looking films in that list. My number one is Joker. But if you've watched my show for a while, you know that I've always been a little bit nervous about it. I think it's cool, but I'm also nervous about the whole musical aspect of it that they're throwing in there. I'm looking at the trailer. I don't know which parts are supposed to be actually in the story and which parts are just supposed to be in his imagination. And the trailers themselves came across as a little convoluted. And so, because I love the first movie, I'm like, doesn't matter. I'm going in. This is my number one most anticipated R-rated film.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the type of response that I was a little bit worried about. Now, I've got my tickets. I'm going opening day to Joker Folie. Of course I am. And I'm expecting great things. But I am going to temper my expectations a little bit now at this point.
And a lot of the reviews, it's weird that none of the musical aspect of it was really mentioned by
none of the ones that I read even mentioned the musical bits.
So that's kind of strange to me if that's a big part of the film. Yeah, that's what I got out of.
Well, I don't know how big. We don't know how large it looms.
Right,
really.
But that was a big thing when they were developing it. I think Todd Phillips wanted to make a musical, like part musical at least, right? Mm-hmm. He was talking about how he's excited to actually incorporate that into the sequel. But it's weird that none of them mentioned it in the reviews that John just read. So
let's read a couple more. Hannah Strong writes, it begs the question, why is Phillips so reluctant to embrace the film is a musical? Why not add a little more color, some flourish to the production design? Mm. I mean, so they do reference the thing about the musical aspect a little bit. Flix wrote, it is not that this version of the Joker is inherently wrong, but it is uninteresting. Please let us be done with this.
Oh, wow.
Now, Slash Film, on the other hand, liked it. It feels remarkably honest and true to itself, demonstrating again that taking such a popular character seriously is nothing to laugh at. I actually really like that comment. Mm. That if you take some of these fantastical, ridiculous, larger than life characters that we get in the comic books, but actually take them seriously for a second. And what would that actually be like in a more grounded kind of realistic world? How do they come across? Comes across bad. Our friend Eric Eisenberg over at Cinema Blend wrote, an overindulgent musical that lacks the punch of its predecessor. Screen International didn't like it, writing, where the original Joker remains a stunning exception, that rare blockbuster with emotional shading, grown-up themes, and a genuine sense of grandeur, this sequel fails to stay on the beat. So that's what I was talking about. Even a number of guys who even really liked the first one didn't like the second one. And that becomes, I don't know.
Well, I think with this, they had to swing for the fences to get Joaquin interested in it, for the director to really want to be interested. So I knew this was going to be a risk-taking film, and I think I can kind of I don't know, we'll appreciate it for that,
Oh, a second. I caught a comment in the live chat, and I went over here. The page I got open, the list has reviews for both the original Joker and the new Joker, and some of the ones the ones at the top of the list are from the original Joker. And so now I'm scrolling down now, and it's like, wait, this, I already read one from this because they're all blended in on the same list. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh no!
Sorry for that confusion.
Maybe
they're all on the same page.
That's why we didn't get a lot of the music.
Yes, they're all on the same page.
Okay, so
anyway, let me read some more now that I'm down at the bottom of the page. Let's see. The Decider wrote, this newfound stylistic vigor helps expand the shelf life of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, but by the time the end comes, this incarnation feels exhausted. Collider, where a place I used to work, writes, Phillips is just incapable of delivering the genre's requisite razzle-dazzle that would surely complement Joker's persona. Vanity Fair did not like it, saying it's strangely dull, a pointless procedural that seems to disdain its audience. And Total Film wrote, part courtroom movie, part behind the bars romance, Folie Deux is an unconventional musical sequel that fails to hit the high notes.
Ooh.
So, yeah, again, just kind of, it's a little concerning.
There's not excitement. Even in the positives, it's just not excitement.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of big enthusiasm. Right? Not a lot of big enthusiasm.
And you know, a lot of my movies fall into this range where it's 60% or 50%. Sometimes I really like those because it makes me want to form my own opinion and just go and see.
Well, I mean, look, again, I want everybody to remember what we said off the top. The first Joker movie has a 69.
Right.
Which isn't great, but it went on to get nominated for Best Picture of the Year, and I love that movie. I was kind of hoping to see better reactions to this one than the last one. The fact that it's like almost 10% even lower than the last one. Again, now look, I did not expect Joker 2 to be better than the first Joker.
Yeah.
Right? I never expected it to be better than the first Joker. The first Joker to me is just a great piece of art. I love it. But it didn't need to be as good as the first Joker for me. But I at least wanted to get a little bit close.
Right.
And so, but look, again, had a 69 the first one, and I loved it. Maybe I'll love this one too. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. Guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? The first reviews coming out for it are lower than what they were for the original Joker movie. Now, granted, the original Joker ones weren't super high either. Still, nearly 7 out of every 10 critics did like the first one. This one is 6 out of every 10. It's a little concerning to me. Does it do anything to make you concerned? Or are you like, nope, I already know I'm going to love this movie. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, guys, we're now going to move on to the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take another quick second and thank another sponsor of our show today, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. You know when you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you bump on repeat and you have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is? That's kind of what it feels like when you discover that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there is no way you can keep it to yourself. My last mobile service provider was quite good, but ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've enjoyed even better coverage, better phone clarity, and I'm paying less than a third of what I paid to my old provider. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to your questions here, shall we? Jonathan, what we got up first?
Funko Pimp says, fun fact, according to Jon Favreau, the opening single shot of 2019's Lion King is actually fully live action. I know, that's fun.
Everybody knows this. This has been common knowledge for a very... there's only one real life shot, and that's just the camera shot of the sunrise. When you hear, and that's it. Everything else is a totally animated thing, but that's very, 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 very common knowledge. We've talked about that for years. Everybody knows that one already. All right, what's next?
Joey L says, I had the privilege of visiting one of the filming locations from Tom Hanks' Castaway, the dirt road intersection at the end of the movie.
Oh, nice.
It was so moving for me to be there, considering that the movie and its message saved my life during a hard time.
I said this before. Like, I remember, some of you might have heard me tell this story before. I remember one of the reasons Castaway is so meaningful to me is that I watched it not terribly long after one of our college friends, we found out had committed suicide. And it wasn't long after that I saw Castaway. And the message of that movie, and one of the things that Tom Hanks says, it's after he leaves the island, and like somebody's asking him some kind of question, like, how did you keep going or whatever? And he said, you know, I just kept telling him, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, just tell myself, stay alive, because you never know what the tide is going to bring in tomorrow. Of course, in the movie, every once in a while, the tide brings in something from the crashed plane, right?
Right.
That ends up being useful to him or helping him. When something seemed hopeless, something would wash up on shore. The message, of course, of that is you never know what the tide is going to bring, is that things can happen tomorrow that will drastically change the way you look at your life. Sometimes for the bad and sometimes for the good. And I remember one of my other friends in my college circle, and we talked about our friend who had committed suicide. It's like, fuck, I wish they had seen this movie before they did what they did. And it was really hard because we didn't know they were going through such a dark time. But I just think there's a universal message there in that movie that remember, how do things look today? Did they look the same way a year ago? Probably not, which means life changes, man. If it's going really good, never forget, it could take a bad turn tomorrow. But if it's going horrible, life may look very different tomorrow. You don't know. And that's why that is, to me, a very, very special movie that I wish everybody would watch. It's just a great film. Anyway. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, hi, John, was rewatching Captain America 1. I forgot how good this movie really is and the quality of Phase 1 movies versus recent ones. I was thinking maybe a reason these movies are so good is that they feel like self-contained stories, and so there is no MCU.
No, that's the problem. When people are trying to figure out the quality of a film, this is a problem with, and I've been guilty of this too, that all of us film fans do. We look for the formula. The formula is what affects it. No, because a lot of people will say like some of the greatest comic book movies ever made are Civil War, which is not a self-contained story, Infinity War, Endgame, right? Like it's not the formula. It's like, make it about this and that makes the movie good. No, it was just a really well-made movie, whether it was self-contained or not. It was just next movie. I think Captain America, the First Avenger, is the third most underrated comic book film of all time. Obviously, the number one most underrated comic book film of all time is my boy Henry right here. Man of Steel, easily the most underrated comic book film of all time. I believe the second most underrated comic book film of all time is the first Chris Hemsworth Thor movie. And I think the third most underrated comic book film of all time is Captain America, the First Avenger. That movie's great. I'm not saying it's as good as Winter Soldier or Civil War, but it's great. And it's absolutely worth a rewatch. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, my father passed away recently. We used to bicker and
sorry
fight
to hear about that, man.
all the time. My wife used to intermediate, but we would always reconcile. After seeing Duran navigate his father the same way, I felt an emotional connection to Rings I haven't before.
I think I mentioned that after watching the first 3 episodes of season 2. I think that was my favorite scene in the first 3 episodes. Was like, there's a scene where Duran's father, like, a father and son who just don't know how to communicate with each other. They both know they love each other, but they do not know how to communicate to each other. And at some point, Duran's father actually goes to Duran's wife to try to, make this, like, whatever. And that struck incredibly true. And that's when high fantasy or high sci-fi is at its best, is when it actually feels real, is when it feels like something we relate to. And this thing about dwarven kings and undermountain kingdoms and all that kind of stuff, there's this incredible moment because I've had times that members of my family have gone to Anne, right? They reach out to Anne because maybe they don't want to ask me directly or something along those lines. Hell, I'll tell you this. My last trip home, first of all, there is no human being, no man, I think, in this world who is a better representation of what a man is than my dad. He's taught me everything about the importance of family, putting family first, even when it costs you everything. He's about hard work, about respect, about standing up for other people, about all that kind of stuff. Everything I've learned, I learned from watching my dad. My dad never even had to sit down and say, son, I have a lesson to teach you. I learned all that just by watching my dad. That's the best kind of teaching, is just live it. And my dad did that my whole life, right? But there are few people who can frustrate me as much as my father. As a matter of fact, if my mom's watching this, and my mom often watches the show, but she'll remember this. She'll giggle at this. My last trip home, my dad and I are on the phone, and we had a miscommunication because I texted him something about being late, but he didn't get the text. And so I was late, so he gets mad. And he's like, well, why didn't you call me instead of texting me late? And then I lost my temper because I get it from my dad. And I'm like, don't you raise your voice at me. And like, Anne's sitting beside me, listening to me, my dad, blah, 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 yelling at each other on the phone. And it's like, this is the man I love more than anything else. This is the man I respect more than anything else in the world. Blah, blah, blah. But my dad and I can bicker. My dad and I can bicker. And I'm watching that scene of like a father who just doesn't know how to communicate to his son, and a son who just doesn't know how to communicate to his father. And then the father eventually goes to his wife. I'm like, this is feeling uncomfortably familiar. And that's why I love stuff like this. Anyway. All right. What's next?
Okay, we got a 3-parter from Save Legends of Tomorrow. In my opinion, Star Wars works best as simple melodrama about family and good versus evil with some subtle political allegory added in.
There's never been subtle in George Lucas's political allegory. Nothing has ever been subtle about his political allegory.
The original trilogy and Mandoverse. Sometimes in fiction, the best stories are the ones that just aren't all that complex. To that end, I feel that films and shows like Acolyte and The Last Jedi don't have their success or failure and their artistic worth debated because of toxic fanboys. Those losers hold no real influence, no matter how much some wish to assign blame to them. They are debated because modern creatives keep trying to add a lot more depth to the franchise, as well as trying to deconstruct multiple aspects of it. In my opinion, it's time they stop trying to overcomplicate Star Wars and just keep things simple.
No. This goes back to what the other viewer was writing in about, in my opinion, at any rate, which could be right and could be wrong. But, the previous writer's like, well, that one was better than this one because formula. There's nothing complicated about the Acolyte. It's a basic murder mystery
that tells you who the bad guy is.
With they set up a bit of a twist a little bit later on, which is very easy to see coming. Right? There's nothing overly complicated about it. If they had taken that premise and executed it right, and actually had not horrendous dialogue, and didn't have absolutely ridiculous character actions that were not in line with their characters, and all that kind of stuff, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The Acolyte wasn't bad because it attempted to try to do some more complicated things. It was bad because it was bad. Regardless of, listen, we've all seen very, very simple storylines to movies that were very, very horrible. At the end of the day, you just got to execute. Strong characters, strong dialogue, strong story. Whether the story is just monochromistic, straightforward, simple, whether it's got a number of twists and turns and and several layers of depth and whatever, you got to execute. Doing it simple story does not equal good movies. Does also not equal bad movies. Doing complicated stories does not equal good movies, does not equal bad movies. It's just our intrinsic nature as fans is we instantly try to find the answer in the formula, and that's not it. Sometimes somebody makes a cheeseburger and it's just a bad tasting cheeseburger. And sometimes they make a cheeseburger and it tastes great. It's just a matter of executing. So no, I disagree with the premise. And again, I also disagree. I don't think Acolyte was all that complicated of a story.
Mandalorian, if anything, is more complicated than...
I mean, I think Mandalorian is more complicated than that. And even Mandalorian is a pretty straightforward thing, right? So, yeah, I don't agree with the premise of the question, right? Because number one, I didn't think it was all that complicated, but even if it was complicated, that's not what makes it bad. Having a complicated story does not make the dialogue bad. If you can start with the basic fundamentals and you get those right, then the formula you choose to use really won't matter. If you get the fundamentals right, you're going to be fine. So I don't believe that the issue is that they're trying to make it complicated. No, because you can make it complicated and make it awesome. The crying game, right? You can do complicated and have it be awesome, and you can do simple and have it be terrible. So I don't believe that's, personally for me, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, I don't believe that's where the answer lies. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, can't believe I'm saying this. What a 180 for... what a 180 for Ring Season 2. It's tightly paced, great screenplay, gorgeous. Doesn't look fake anymore. Really nuanced performances and just engaging. This is what happens when you listen to feedback. Take note, Lucasfilm.
Well, I don't know that it's, because honestly, some of the feedback I heard from the audience on Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 1 was garbage. Like, just a lot of the feedback was garbage. Like, that's not what the problem with it was. This is what happens when you have a committed group that says, let's identify where we made our mistakes and let's commit to improving. Now, look, again, I'm not at the place where I'm ready to call Rings of Power Season. By the way, it's the 4th episode dropped. Drops today, right?
Yeah, today.
So I am personally not at the place that I'm ready to say they've totally redeemed Rings of Power. I'm not there yet. But what is clear to me is, remember, we were just talking about the basic fundamentals. What is clear to me is that it seems that they did identify in the off season, where are the mistakes that we made when it comes to the basic fundamentals? Like, one of the things that we talked about the other day is that in season 1, I was constantly watching scenes and I was thinking to myself, why is this scene even in here? It either A, doesn't add anything to the story, B, is something that we've already covered in another scene, or, 3, 4, 5, and 6, always that kind of stuff. But right in episode 1 of season 2, I'm like, okay, they've tightened this up a lot. Every scene, I now know why it's there. I can feel the purpose of every scene. They've cut out a lot of the extra fat. The dialogue was tighter. The characters, they're focused more on the characters a little bit.
So this show is headed in the right direction.
It's heading in at least for now.
Right. I mean,
it's heading in a better direction.
Right. So
at
least appreciate that.
Let's see. Look, I just think it is a big improvement from season 1, which disappointed me so badly. But let's see if it continues or if it falls off a cliff on episode 4 tonight. All right, what's next?
We got Amin, who says, caught up on some films this past week. Hitman, I enjoyed it. Trap, a tough watch, did not like. And Twister's way more fun than I thought. I'm officially a Glenn Powell fan. Man has so much on-screen charisma. Want to see him in more dramatic roles next.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I am liking Glenn Powell very much. But I'm starting to wonder, I'm not doubting, I'm saying I'm starting to wonder, how good of an actor is he really? Because he's clearly great in the Hangman, Hitman, Twister, Storm Chaser dude character, right? He's got that because he's got so much on-screen charm that he can really carry those kinds of characters. Now that I'm already sold on that, I am curious to see, put him in a Scorsese movie.
Yeah, you nailed it. And you nailed
Right?
it with the Scorsese, because I was thinking he reminds me of the earlier days of Matthew McConaughey. Both Texans. They
Who did go on to win an Academy Award.
They got that charm.
Yep.
They got the charisma. They got the looks.
You put Matthew McConaughey in a Dallas Buyers Club, and he shines and gets an Oscar.
I don't
Can
think
Glenn Powell do that.
You're right. I don't think anyone doubts McConaughey anymore.
No.
Academy Award winner. He's a great actor. So yeah, exactly. Now,
And I'm not saying Glenn Powell can't be that.
No, I'm
I'm
saying
just saying
can he?
we don't know yet.
Yeah,
I'd
see it.
love to see him expand a little
We
bit.
saw glimpses of that in Twisters. Crazy to say that movie where there was a little fear, there's a little emotion when in some of the parts. Remember
It's
when
still basically
I
the
know,
Hangman
but
character again, though, right?
If he's not there, he could get there.
I hope he might be there. We just haven't seen it yet. By the way, Fanjecture just put in the live chat, Glenn Powell for the last Starfighter remake. There's few movies out there that I want made more than a Last Starfighter remake.
He might be too old for
I
that,
think
though.
he's too old for it.
You got to be like just out of college or younger.
I'm thinking 19 to 24
yeah.
is got to be your Last Starfighter character. I just think
Because he's in his 30s. It's like, I got to get out of this town. It's a little old for angst.
Yeah, are you still living in the trailer park with your mom? Yeah, it doesn't quite work. All right, what's next?
All right. Sabrosa says, hi, John and crew. As someone who has already seen both Memoir of a Snail and Megalopolis at Melbourne International Film Festival,
Oh yeah.
I can confirm that Memoir is great. Megalopolis is an insane experience, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. That's actually
That's good.
that's not bad.
It's not necessarily good, but it's also not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Memoirs of a Snail is a movie that I'm very excited to see. I'm also very curious about how did this movie get an R rating. But we'll see about that. Megalopolis. Again, what you just said is just insane. I heard a lot of that coming out of the distributor screenings. They're like, we don't know how you sell this movie. Like everything from it's kind of a mess to maybe you can see the brilliance behind it, but I don't think anybody's going to go watch it. I don't think anybody's going to go watch it. I'll be there to see it because it's Francis Ford Coppola, but I am very, very curious to see the movie myself. All right, what's next?
Alejandro says, I leave in about 11 days for the Navy.
Nice.
And won't be back for 6 months. Makes me sad I won't be able to listen to your show for 6 months or more. Your show has got me through some tough times. Happy for you, but not looking forward to your retirement.
Well, I mean, if you ship off, you won't have any downtime to listen to podcasts or anything like that. But anyway, regardless, the good news about our show is that they're all recorded. You can come back and revisit it when you get back. Get on the podcast feed or on the YouTube channel, whatever, it'll all be there. And just think about all the movies you're going to get caught up on when you come back. So best of luck to you. Good on you for doing what you're doing. And I hope you have a really good time there doing it. All right, what's next?
Andy says, hi, John and crew. Love the show. As always, seems to be the highlight of my evening. Always loved King Kong with Jack Black. I thought of the visuals that acting in it were, I think he means end acting in it, were amazing. For me, it was very thrilling, pretty damn scary. It had that 50s like Harryhausen kind of feel.
Look,
With Jack.
that Peter Jackson,
Oh, Peter Jackson. Yeah.
the Peter Jackson directed King Kong movie, which, by the way, the King Kong quote unquote ride at Universal Studios Hollywood is awesome. It's been around for like 10, 15 years now, and it's still great. But that movie should have been an hour shorter. You literally could have just taken a pair of scissors and cut the film where they first see Skull Island in the distance and they're approaching Skull Island and just gotten rid of the first hour. And you would have had a much better movie. That the entire first hour of that movie is kind of a waste. And even then, there's some stuff you could have trimmed out. Peter Jackson went through a bit of a phase where he didn't know how to make a movie less than 3 hours long. And then I think he started to realize that's not always the best thing. But seriously, that King Kong movie should have been at least an hour shorter. But there is some really good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some, like the fights between Kong and the T-Rexes and all that kind of stuff is so good. I like the movie. I just, again, they should have just started it an hour into the film.
Yeah, it is so long.
It's so long.
I watched it recently, and it was so long.
And like by the time you even get to Skull Island, you're almost kind of fatigued.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's
because the movie just kind of plods until you get there. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Benji the Husky says, I'm very pumped to see Hans Zimmer live this weekend. I'm building up my anticipation. What is your favorite Hans Zimmer movie soundtrack? For me, it's Interstellar, followed by Man of Steel, but there are so many to choose.
Man of Steel, period.
Batman Begins for me. I can listen to that soundtrack from the first song to the last. That's the only soundtrack I can listen to front to back.
It's so good. You know what? I come across these YouTube videos of guy starts to play the Interstellar theme in the mall, and it's millions of views. I don't love the Interstellar music. I don't dislike it. Don't get me wrong. But when I think of the stuff, like my favorite Hans Zimmer stuff, for me, actually, Interstellar is not the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, Man of Steel, just like Batman is for you, the Man of Steel for me is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Rivals, not surpasses, but rivals John Williams as Superman, I think. All right, what's next?
Okay, there's actually a part 2 to Andy's here, but it says, my question is, do you think they ever touched on the thrilling side of the MonsterVerse movies? Because at the moment, the movies for me seem to be goofy. Don't get me wrong, I love the action, but I miss the scares. What are your thoughts? So
they would have to redo like a different universe because they've already went deep into this.
But I don't know. Like, look, the stuff I just talked about from the Peter Jackson, like the fighting the T-Rexes and all that kind of stuff, you get that in the new movies. That's there. I mean, you don't get some of the more human drama, the human scares, the human, like you do with the natives of the island and all that kind of stuff. But listen, all I know is this. In Godzilla X Kong,
Oh, here we go.
I got to see a monster suplex another monster.
I thought you were about to say, "Oh, I got to see a King Kong knock out Godzilla."
Well, and we got to see King Kong ground and pound Godzilla.
I thought
that
Kong
too,
Skull Island was a good representation of Skull Island.
I mean, yeah, it just, I think the action stuff is every bit as good as the Peter Jackson action stuff.
And I think he just misses the terror part of it, like where you see the foot come down first, and people are witnessing like the pure horror of I'm about to die, and like you don't know what the monster's gonna do.
Yeah.
When these movies, it seems like they're our big pets now.
I don't know, man. A lot of people die in these movies. A lot of people die.
They do throw a lot of condos at each other, or they do throw a lot of penthouse suites at each other. And I always
They should
wonder.
stop that. That's
I always
rude.
wonder what they're doing when they're thrown to the.
All right, what's next?
They're dying.
No,
They're dying.
Dildar the Glorious says, I know it will most likely not happen, but I can see if they continue the Acolyte, they could make it a novel or a comic. Some properties continue as books, and I feel like it might work better as one, but that's just my opinion.
They could, but there's no money to be made.
Nah.
That's the thing. Like, why? You'd have to come up with why would they do it? Because it ain't going to be to make money, because neither of those are going to make any real money. So there's just no real thing. I mean, if Acolyte was super popular, then yeah, you could probably make a few shekels doing a comic or a novel. But yeah, I just don't see any reason for them to do it. There's just no motivation there. All right, what's next?
It's Mr. Lewis says, September is the month of Aubrey Plaza with Megalopolis, Agatha, and My Old Ass.
By the way, I didn't put that on my list because I don't know enough about it, but just because she is in it, the My Old Ass, I'm looking forward to that just because it's Aubrey Plaza. I love her. I've loved her ever since Parks and Rec. I cannot wait to see her in Agatha. And I don't care what anybody else says. I think Agatha is going to be great. And then again, I thought The Acolyte was going to be great, and look how that turned out. All right, what's next?
Anton says, the harsh reviews of Joker 2 might be the first true test of Zaslav and his regime, as it was the first big film ordered under his tenure, and right after the Batgirl debacle. You said it will take about 2 years until we see the effects of Zaslav.
Yeah, we are heading into the period now, and actually already have a little bit of, like, this is no, because again, we always say this, whenever there's any kind of regime change, right? We always say it's going to be about 2 years before you actually see the effects of the regime change. That was true when Bob Chapek became CEO of Disney. It's true after he left CEO as Disney. It's true when Zaslav took over Warner Brothers. Is that we are now entering into that phase where now it's all them. Like, for the first couple of years, it was damage control and trying to fix the way that AT&T ran Warner Brothers into the ground. The best analogy is one I got from Forbes in talking about the Warner Brothers situation. AT&T punctured a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of the Warner Brothers boat. And the first couple of years of Zaslav and their team has been dealing with the sinking ship and trying to bail out the water and plug up the holes. AT&T just about destroyed Warner Brothers. Just about destroyed them. Highlighted, like, their last big fuck you that they did was when they made that decision to, like, you know what we're going to do? All of our movies coming out this year are all going to streaming, to which all the filmmakers said, excuse me, what did you just say? That's not our deal. I mean, they literally destroyed the bottom of the boat, and the boat had just started to sink. And the entire first couple of years of that new regime over there has been trying to patch up the holes and keep the boat from sinking. But now we are in that period where everything that we now see, this is all them. This is now all the new regime. Now, David Zaslav and the executives of Warner Brothers are not on set directing the film or acting in the film. But again, now is when we're really going to start to see the true effects of that regime change. We are in that period now. And whether they sink or swim, we're going to find out here pretty quick. All right, what's next?
All right, Matan follows up. Joker 2 felt to me like a movie parody in The Critic, where it tries harder with the musical homage instead of King of Comedy. The title in French and doubling down on "We live in a society." No wonder a lot of critics are saying this stinks.
Well, what's the point? You haven't seen the movie.
Right.
Like, you're basing all that on a trailer.
Folie,
Whether the movie is good or bad, I mean, you can't know why the critics like, and by the way, the majority of critics like the movie. Like, everybody always forgets that. Like, 6 out of 10 is not a great score, but it is still the majority of the critics like it.
Right.
So, but you can't have any opinion about why a critic didn't like something until you've seen the movie yourself. So it's kind of pointless to speculate on that, especially from just a trailer. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, Josh Brolin potentially playing Hal Jordan makes me think Brolin is great, but at 56, do you think this indicates the character might not be around for long in the DCU? I also saw Chris Pine's name being floated, just a rumor, but I think he'd fit well.
Well, here's the thing. Remember, as Green Lantern, a lot of the things that he's going to be doing are going to be CG, right? Or he's going to be CGI. If the story that they have in mind calls for an older, more experienced, grizzled veteran of the Green Lantern Corps, Hal Jordan, then the Josh Brolin casting, if it turns out to be true, is actually really smart. If that's what the script is, if the script is our story calls for we're going to have a number of Green Lanterns, but there's going to be an older, more experienced veteran Green Lantern in Hal Jordan, who's going to kind of like be the leader of this younger batch of Green Lanterns, then the Hal Jordan, then the, I should say Josh Brolin casting would theoretically be brilliant. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, if that's the character he's supposed to be playing, then he could play that character for 10 years. If he's playing grizzled veteran Hal Jordan, who's been in the Green Lantern Corps for 20 years, then he can continue to play that character for another 10 to 15 years. So no, it doesn't necessarily mean he won't be around that long. All right. Is that it?
No, we got some more.
Okay, what's next?
Will DLC says, hey gang, Netflix has dropped 2 documentary trailers today, Mr. McMahon and Will and Harper. Both look great for entirely different reasons, particularly the latter. Did you get a chance to see these? And if so, what did you think? Thanks.
Haven't heard of either of them.
Will and Harper, I just looked it up, but Will and Harper is Will Ferrell and his...
Oh, yes. That's the one where Will Ferrell finds out his best friend became transgender. And they decide to go on a long road trip together to kind of like rediscover each other. I haven't seen the trailer, but I've heard about it, and that sounds really interesting. The Mr. McMahon one I've not heard of. I'm going to assume this is a Vince McMahon documentary.
Me too.
Oh, I'll be interested in seeing that.
Oh, my, part of me does.
But you don't want to have your childhood ruined by...
No, there's not really childhood. It's just that, like, from whatever's come out already, it's just been so much, like, then you're going to just drive it home with more. It's like, I already know the guy's evil now, so.
Well, I mean, there could be a lot of stories, though, that we don't know about. Like, look, I haven't seen the trailer yet, but I will watch the trailer, because I'd be very interested in this, depending on what angle they take. All right, what's next?
We got Tron, who says, ready for a hot take? After the divisive Joker reactions, I think Venom has a chance to have a bigger opening than Joker. It'll still be big. I think a lot of people are sleeping on it, just like they slept on the first Venom.
I do not agree. I would like that to be true. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. But the first Venom movie made over 800 million, or about $800 million at the box office, if I'm not mistaken. The second one made a lot of money for many movies at $500 million, made 500 million, but it took a decline. So the last Venom movie made 500 million. The last Joker movie made $1 billion. I do not see Venom 3 making more than Joker 2. I don't think Joker 2 is going to be $1 billion film. I've been saying that for months. I've never believed that Joker 2 is going to be $1 billion. I think it'd be big. It's going to be successful, but I don't think $1 billion film. But while I would love Venom 3 to beat Joker 2 or Joker 2, I do not think it's going to. Again, the Venom box office trend is decline, whereas the last Joker movie was $1 billion film. So I hope you're right, but I don't think that's the way it's going to work out. I don't think it will. It would be nice though. All right, what's next?
All right, final four. War Criminal Chopper says Sabine Wren herself, aka Natasha Lou Bordizzo, mentioned at Dragon Con that she won't be attending the event next summer because she'll be filming Ahsoka season 2, which means it would come out in 26 earliest.
I still think it won't happen at all. I don't know that. Like, nobody's told me that. This is just me as a fan speculating, just like we all do. I think at the end of the day, I don't think Ahsoka season 2 is going to happen. Look, all due respect to people who enjoyed Ahsoka, and I know there are people out there who did like the series. I did not think it was very good, which was too bad because I actually loved Ahsoka in Mandalorian. Then we got to see her and in Book of Boba Fett, which was terrible. That was terrible. And Rosario Dawson, I think she's great playing the role, but Ahsoka was not very good. And with them maybe streamlining them more, if Bob Iger, and that's a big if Bob Iger is mandating them and cut it back, do you really want your next season to be Ahsoka? I mean, you might as well do the Acolyte. I mean, Ahsoka was better than the Acolyte, but I don't put them too terribly far apart from each other in quality-wise. But we'll see. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. And there's a full year between now and then when they're supposed to start shooting. That's a long time for it to get shelved. Again, the official word is it's happening. I have heard nothing that suggests otherwise. This is just me as a pure fan, purely speculating. So we'll see what happens. All right, what's next?
Nicholas says, Reeves' comment about the grounded aspect of his universe literally bores me. I know it's possible to be interested in both visions, but I'm just waiting for the DCU Batman. Nolan has already proposed a realistic take, and I didn't like it even then. Well, DC,
there are people who don't like The Godfather.
DC has everything for everyone, so.
I mean, listen, there is no rendition of Batman you can make that will be for everybody. Right? There's just no rendition of Batman you can make that will be for everybody. There are even people out there who criticize the Nolan versions of Batman because they never got into the more fantastical aspects of the comic books. They didn't get into the Man-Bats, into the clay faces, and he kept it pretty grounded. And that's not going to be for everybody. I thought Matt Reeves' The Batman was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't The Dark Knight, don't get me wrong, but I thought it was absolutely bloody fantastic. A little bit long. It should have been tightened up by about 15 minutes. But it's not going to be for everybody. Listen, when you go through the Rogues Gallery of Batman, all the best ones are grounded. Penguin, Joker, Bane, to a degree, if you tone it down a little bit. Catwoman, KG Beast, Riddler, like all the key main ones are grounded villains anyway. I mean, that was Christopher Nolan's vision for his Batman. It's Matt Reeves' vision for his. So I think it's the right way to go, to be honest with you. I like having this idea that Batman is unique in the universe. He is a man. He's just human, dealing with incredibly complex and dangerous human problems. I just don't think when you look at the first Batman that, say, suddenly having, I don't know another character you can bring up, but like a gentleman ghost, like we're a gentleman ghost kind of something, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel grounded. It doesn't feel like to the real world. And for me, that's what makes it work. And that's what makes it great. And yes, like you were saying, Ray, you can have You're going to have a DCU Batman that's going to be in that larger world that has all the other fantastical things. That's great. But I also want to have this Batman that is the detective. That is a man trying to fight for his city and against the darker elements of it. And it's just something there for everybody.
And I have a good feeling James Gunn is going to give this user maybe the Batman he wants. Because James Gunn, I think he might go a different route than what we're seeing with the Batman.
For sure.
Well, remember, just that Batman is going to be in a world with Superman and Wonder Woman.
Brave and the Bold. Brave and the Bold, that title? It's
going to be in that world. So it's going to be a little something for everybody. But again, one of my most exciting anticipated things coming out is this Penguin series. Because again, it's in this rooted, grounded Gotham. So we'll see how it works out. All right, what's next?
Ricky Ticky Tacky says, I'm in Kraven the Hunter. That's news to me. My wallet says I'm not in the movie.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know why I came up with the name Ricky Tiki Tacky. Not sure why I did that. Because you know what? There's a couple of names that no matter how much I talk about them and I love them, I always freeze on them. Always have. Aaron Taylor Johnson's one of them. And Adrian Brody is the other one.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Anya Taylor-Joy. I was like, you don't like that hyphen.
No,
She's
I'm
Tacky
good at
Tacky
that.
Joy.
I always get it.
Okay.
But Adrian Brody, I always freeze on, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. I don't know why, because I love both of the guys and I talk about them constantly. But whenever I got to bring up Adrian Brody, I'm like, damn it, the guy from The Pianist who won the Academy Award. Like every time, my whole life, it's been that. Don't know why. So I finally just came up with the name for Aaron Taylor Johnson. I'll always remember. Ricky Tiki Tacky. There you go. All right, what's next?
All right, Nicholas says, I understand the appeal of DC movies that are described as realistic, but I can't help but see them as pompous, pretentious, even disdainful takes. Dang, dude, that's pretty aggressive. As if the original material would have no interest adapted as is because too kiddish or too superficial. They're just dealing with the more realistic characters.
Okay. Newsflash, kid. The original Batman comics exactly was that.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the original content, that's what the original Batman comics were. He was dealing with criminals. That is the original thing. And we've had decades of the more fantastical stuff to get something that feels like this could actually happen in our world is a massive breath of fresh air. It's not an either or. To be quite frank, your comment is rather pretentious. Like saying, no, it's got to be this way. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I think in a world and in an entertainment world where we've had so much of that already, to actually give us something like the Batman, like the Detective Comics were originally, more grounded. Batman being a crime fighter, fighting bad guys, all that kind of stuff, dealing with criminals. That is the original source material.
It would be interesting to see like a more colorful Batman, like the Adam West stuff, have like a film like in that sort of manner where it's not so serious. But I don't know. Who knows? I mean, if you don't like the Batman that's on the screen, well, you'll probably end up getting one eventually. Eventually, like a sort of theme the way this.
But we already have. We had that with Ben Affleck's Batman.
All right.
We had that with, we had that with the Schumacher era Batman. We have that coming in the James Gunn Batman. To actually give us something that is more true to the origins of the character and to actually feels like is actually in our real world. Like this is a story of like, what would that be like in our real world? That is something that we don't get very often anymore. And to take that approach is why, first of all, why that Matt Reeves' Batman movie was insanely successful and why it's as beloved as it is and why this Penguin series is going to be awesome because it looks at it from a different way than what we've, like, I'm sorry, but what you're asking for, we've gotten for decades and decades and decades and decades. It's time to try something more rooted in what the origins of the character was and bring it into our real world.
And also Batman Beyond.
And we are still getting the James Gunn one. We're still getting the James Gunn one. So
here's my thing. I don't understand because like, yes, he made the comments about moving forward because people have proposed like more fantastical characters. Did you not see the Batman? That was rooted in a more realistic world already. So it's not like that wasn't, and now all of a sudden he's ruining everything and going serious. It's like, That the first one was that was the road marker for you on his. If you don't like it, just don't stick to the Reeves stuff.
Anyway, all right.
That's
What's
it.
next? That's it?
Yeah, I'm not reading after Nicholas. He ruined it for everybody. I'm not reading any more. Also, there are no more.
Anyway, guys,
coincidentally,
that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show today. We did a live stream. We got all the way through it. The internet actually held up today.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll do that tomorrow too.
Maybe.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. Big special thank you to everybody who sent in the questions, even the ones I don't agree with. That's the great thing about it. You watch my show, I'll often say things you don't agree with. That's the joy of being film fans. It's not when we all agree. It's when we disagree and we get to share ideas about why we agree and disagree. So thank you to everybody who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. I want to thank Ray Ora.
I'm always right.
Jonathan Voico.
more realistic.
And thank you to you guys. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, Neagley.